Hi, my name's Cord, and today I'm going to show you how to make a quick and dirty field legal Amtgard weapon. So before we begin, let me show you what sort of ingredients you're going to need to be able to build such a weapon. First thing you're going to need is a core. Now what I have here is a graphite golf shaft, so it's basically a graphite club with the head broken off. Okay. This is really the one that I prefer because it's nice, quick, and light, but you can really use pretty much anything as long as it meets the following requirements. It's hollow, so it's not a solid core, and it's non-metallic. Okay, so there are a variety of different things you can use. PVC, bamboo, kite tubing, anything along those lines will really work as far as a core is concerned. Okay. Next thing you're going to need is the actual padding for the sword. Right here I've got two different types of padding. This right here is a child's fun noodle toy. You can pick these up at any of your local like Target or Walmart stores or anything like that. These are nice and squishy, and luckily they're pre-cored, so they're pretty easy to actually put together on a sword. Okay. The downside to fun noodle is that it does break down somewhat quickly. There are other options out there. This right here is a microcell tube that you can actually use. These are unfortunately a lot harder to come by, so the only place I've seen to order them is from a place online called Warlord Sports. But if you want to actually go the extra mile and purchase these, they do last a lot longer than the fun noodle does, and you'll have to build your swords a lot less often. Okay. Next thing you're going to need is three different types of tape. Okay. The first type is the one that you're going to use for primary construction, and that's just clear packaging tape. The next one is going to be duct tape, which this one you use pretty much on an as-needed basis for weighting. And then the final one is going to be this white, we call it grip tape, but it's basically just white athletic tape that you can get at any local grocery store or Walmart or Walgreens or pretty much any other type of pharmacy store or anything like that. Okay. The next ingredient is blue camp foam. Basically, you're just going to want to cut a couple circles out of it, so you don't need a whole lot. But that's going to work as pretty much your stabbing tip on the sword. Okay. The next thing you'll need is going to be a cover. This right here is, let's see, this one is actually a cut-up pair of black tights. You can actually use trouser socks. You can sew a cover with any sort of fabric you want, but you can pretty much, use whatever you want to cover the sword itself. Okay. A couple of other little gadgets that I've got here. This one right here is a pipe cutter. Can be very useful for cutting the core that you actually decide on using. This right here is a little cutter for little circles out of the blue foam. It's basically just a soup can that has been cut off and then sharpened so that it goes right through the foam pretty easily. And then of course you're going to want your cutting implements, which I prefer to use just a basic kitchen knife. Okay, non-serrated, where it cuts through the fun noodle pretty quickly. Okay. So that's pretty much everything you're going to need to go ahead and get started with the sword itself. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started building the sword. So the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out how long you want the sword itself. Now, the standard short sword in Amtgard is going to be between basically 18 and 36 inches. I prefer mine around 32, so I'm going to go ahead and do it approximately that length. Okay. So what you want to do at that point is cut down the size of the actual core to probably about I'd say about 1.5 inches to 2 inches shorter than you actually want the sword itself. Okay, so if I'm doing a 32-inch sword, I'm going to want to cut the core down to about 30 inches. Okay, so what I do is I measure out the core using just a regular yardstick. So measure it out to about 30 inches. Take the pipe cutter and put it basically at the 30-inch mark. Set it in the groove appropriately, and just work your way through it. Okay, using a pipe cutter should give you a pretty clean edge on the tip. Okay, which is really nice because you want to make sure that the tip is actually pretty smooth and even, so it doesn't bite through the fun noodle. Okay, the nastier or cruddier the tip is, the more likely you are to have to cheese out your weapon and have to rebuild it again relatively quickly. Okay. All right. So what I've got here is basically the nice trimmed off core. Now the next thing you want to do is figure out how much you actually want as far as your fun noodle is concerned for the blade. Now an amp guard sword basically has to be 2/3 strike legal surface in front of the actual handle. Okay, so what you want to do is figure out where 2/3 is on your sword, which on this I'm going to go ahead and just say 20 inches. Okay, so it's right about there. Now you want to measure out the length of that as compared to the fun noodle. Okay, so the edge is right here. I want to take your knife and cut probably just an inch beyond that, so that you have just a little bit of extra room above the actual tip itself. Okay. So once you've got that, as you can see, it's going to fit really nicely over that. And you basically want to have probably about an inch, or I like to say basically just a knuckles length, until you actually get to the tip there. Okay. Now before you actually put that on, since the width of the core is so much smaller than the internal width or diameter of the hole there, you're going to want to build this up somehow. Okay. What I like to do is take just a small piece of fun noodle and just basically cut a small wedge out of it. Okay. Basically just like that. And then what I do is I take the packaging tape here, take it, put it probably about half an inch to an inch higher than the actual tip of the core, and start taping it down. And what you want to do is what we call torque wrapping. Basically, you apply a decent amount of pressure as you're taping it down, and it compacts the foam. Okay, so you do that, cut the tape, and now you've got a nice little foam wedge there that if you slide this on, fits nice and snugly right on the core. Okay, that stops it from banging around in there and will make the sword last longer.